Hey, welcome back. So this is where we've left the project off, and we're going to do some code cleanup in this episode. So if we take a look at our Kanban board, I created a new story, and the story is to clean up, make some things more descriptive, maybe remove some redundant code, and then we also want to abstract some of the logic that will manage the state and some of the business logic stuff into a viewModel so that we can more closely adhere to the MVVM architecture. All right, so our acceptance criteria is going to be we do all those changes, we refactor everything, and then the app behaves the same as before. And in this episode, definitely not going to stop it until we have some way of saving the mood. So we're going to do some SwiftData stuff in this episode as well. Great. So this is the app as we have it today, and I'm just gonna start creating some new files so that we can make our project more maintainable. And the way you do that is with Command N, and then we just want to create a new Swift file, and that's where I'm going to put this mood enum. So I'm just going to call this, I guess just mood. And we'll take this guy out of here. Put it in here. All right, so the next thing we wanted to do was to rename this. There's a really easy way to rename, and that's refactor rename. And it should bring up all the places where this is used so that we can rename it a little easier. Thinking we'll call this mood selection screen. Perfect. And then I think this is just a false error because I moved some things. In here we want to import SwiftUI. Okay, so that's working. So we have mood selection screen. This is the main app where everything hooks in. So in here, because our computed variable here is returning color, we don't need to explicitly do color dot anything, so we can get rid of these just to clean this up. And let's create a new file for our viewModel. So this will be mood selection screen viewModel. And because we're targeting, I think, iOS 17, we can use the new @observable macro, and where you'll see which iOS version is your minimum, you would just tap on your target here, mood tracker, minimum deployments, and then iOS 18.2. So we can definitely use the @observable macro. I can talk a little bit more why like some major apps will support older versions, and that's to do with audience, because the lower deployment version that you can get away with, the more people that you can target, right? Because if you target iOS 18 only, then anybody who didn't update their iOS device and might still be running iOS 17, they're not going to see your app in the App Store. So for major companies, that could mean a lot of money. So that's why they tend to be like 1 or 2 versions behind. And you'll see that very often out in the wild. But because this is an MVP, I'm not intending to release it. It's just going to remain 18.2. So we'll go back here. And let's start creating our view model. And we actually want to import observation, that's right. And then we'll get that code completion there. There we go, @observable, and then class, they have to be classes, and we'll do, what did we call this thing? Mood selection viewModel. And then we don't need it to inherit from anything. And there we go. Now we don't need to say at published whatever. Now we can just say var mood or var whatever, because it's always it's going to assume that these properties are published. And apparently this add observable macro does have some performance enhancements over doing the observable object or inheriting from observable objects. So, all right, so what do we want to do here? We can have the mood selection view model kind of manage our state for the mood, like the selected mood. So one thing we could do is have a var for like the mood value. And that was a double, and we can start that off as 0. And then we can add the selected mood. And then let's take a look at side by side what selected mood did before. So if you open up the side panel here, you can compare 2 files at once. So we can go up here, go to mood selection view, and we can temporarily turn off the canvas and take a look at what selected mood does for us today. So this is the selected mood. I think we can improve this like switch inside of it. I think we can do some other conversions here to make this a little bit cleaner. So inside of selected mood that returns a mood, we can store the index, and that's going to be the int of the mood value. And we want to round that. We want to round it still. And then what we can do is just return mood dot all cases right at the index. So what this code is doing is basically we have our mood, we have that mood enum, and it has all of these cases. And if we make this case iterable, we can return all cases. So we'll make this case iterable. And then we can grab the case at this index, which is what we were doing before here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we have a mood value of 4, we're going to return the case at 4, which is going to always return very pleasant. So this is kind of like a shorthand of switching on this. There are other ways we could probably do this as well, but this will clean it up just a little bit. Okay, so now that we have our selected mood cleaned up, let's take a look at what else we can move over. I don't like that all of this logic is in the view. I think that this logic should also be in the view model. So let's do that. We'll create a new function called update mood. And think about what it should take in. So it should definitely take in maybe the track width and the size. So get rid of that property. We'll take in the value. So we'll say this is the slide X value. And I think that was a double. Actually, it's a CG float. And then we'll need the step width. And again, you can take a look at what step width is with the alt tab. So it's a CG float. And the size, which is also a CG float. And that should give us everything that we need to move this over. Okay, so now that we have that, we can use it inside of this completion here. Get rid of all of this and start using the view model. And actually, we do not have the viewModel set up yet. So let's go ahead and import it. Because we're using the @observable macro, we don't even need to say like @stateObject or @observable_object. We can just define it as a var. So we'll say var viewModel, and that is equal to our mood selection screen viewModel. Now we can go ahead and use this. So we'll say viewModel dot update mood, and the slider X value is just going to be slider location X. And we can close this out now. I like to put these on separate lines if they're if one line is trailing and being too long. So I think that that looks a little bit cleaner. All right, and then the last thing is we got rid of a line here that we still need. So we still need the X value, setting the X value, because that's not something that we brought over. Okay, let's try to build this. I think we're gonna get a problem here because move's not identifiable. Not really sure how that got in there. Make this case iterable. Okay, so the build has succeeded. Let's try to go back to our mood selection screen. We're going to turn the canvas back on, and we're going to see whether or not this thing runs. So something is not hooked up properly. Let's try to figure out why that is. We're still using the selected mood from here and not our viewModel. So we're going to do that. var viewModel. Whoops. var viewModel is mood selection of viewModel. And now we're going to use viewModel.selected mood. And if you do a Control-I, that's going to fix your indentation. Nice. Okay. So we don't want to keep initializing this guy, so we do want to have it at the top of our hierarchy and pass it through to subviews that might need the viewModel. So let's go ahead and do that now. And this is actually going to be pretty easy. I think we can just leave this as type mood selection viewModel, and that'll make us have to pass it in. So now we can fix and just pass in our viewModel. Let's take a look at our view slider again and see if we actually need all of these. So I don't think we need the mood value anymore because we're using the viewModel's mood value, so we'll get rid of that. I think the same thing for up here. We don't need this mood value because we're now capturing it inside of the viewModel. We're gonna rerun the canvas. And hey, it's working like it was before, so that's good. Yeah, so I think we'll call this done for refactoring. I think we did a lot. We made some good changes. We now have a viewModel that's capturing some of the behind the scenes logic that really shouldn't be in the view. And the view's just, and inside of the view classes, it's just concerning anything having to do with the UI. All right, so let's get into some saving. Now we want to actually be able to select a mood that we're feeling today, click save, and it actually saves it to SwiftData. So in this video, I'm not gonna take a deep dive into every single tool and package and feature of Swift that we'll be using in this playlist. So if you do want to take a deeper dive into SwiftData, check out Sean Allen's video here, Intro to SwiftData. It's really cool. It helped me a lot. And yeah. Okay, so we want to be saving moods. So with SwiftData, what we want to do is we want to create a new class. So we're going to Command N to bring up this sheet here. And I'm going to tap on New File, and I'll call this saved mood. So we want to import SwiftData, and we want to use another macro, which is model, and that's going to make this mood able to be saved to SwiftData. We don't need it to be codable because it's not coming from a service, and we just need to define the properties on the struct that we're going to be saving. Yeah, and actually for SwiftData, this needs to be a class. So I'm going to go with class saved mood, and then we'll start defining our properties here that are going to be part of this mood that we're saving. The first one is going to be the date. So var date, and that's going to be a date. The next thing is going to be the mood, of course. So we'll save the mood there too. Then we'll need an initializer, and that is going to allow us to create one of these saved moods so that we can save it. All right, so now that we have our saved mood class set up, we're going to go back to the main app, and this is the main app struct. This app main is telling the compiler exactly where to start running from. So right here is where we want to create our container for our SwiftData. And we want to import SwiftData. So we're going to create our model container by passing in our schema. So we can pass in an array or a singular type of persistent model that we want to save. And we want to save just one for now, which is the saved mood. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll do model container and for saved mood dot self, because it needs the type, and this should work. Let's take a look at exactly why that is upset with me. Okay, so this is mad at me because now mood does need to be codable so that it can encode and decode when it gets into and out of SwiftData. So we're going to go ahead and make this codable and see if there's anything else that needs to be done. There isn't. And so now we're going to go back here. So this container is going to work like an environment object, which means that the mood selection screen and all of its children is going to have access to this container so that it can read and write from our container. All right, so let's start saving the mood. We'll go to the mood selection screen. We'll go to where we're supposed to make this save action, and we want to save the selected mood. So let's get access to our container. It's environment object, and we're going to access the model context. That's going to be var context. It's kind of a model context to me, like how I envision it is like staging your changes to be committed with Git. The context is just like a working area, and the container is like actually where it gets saved, and you want to save the context to your container, but that happens with autosave in SwiftData. So if people are used to core data, they would have to explicitly call save, but with SwiftData you don't have to do that. So now that we have access to our context, we can use it further below. And folks that are familiar with core data, this is going to look very familiar to you. We're going to say context.insert, and then we're going to insert a saved mood. The date is going to be date, and then our mood is going to be our viewModel selected mood. And now that should do it. That should insert it, and that should automatically save it to core data. But because we don't have our like calendar view yet, let's just print it out to make sure that it actually is doing some saving. So I must have a syntax error somewhere. All right, so I just had environment object instead of add environment. So no, I'm going to go ahead and build. And I'll start the canvas again. And it's working like before. All right, so now we need a way to actually print out what we're saving to SwiftData. And that's going to be this code here. Right, so how we're going to actually fetch our saved moods is by using this line here. The @query macro is going to look into our SwiftData for us, pull out an array of saved moods, and it's going to sort that by date, because we have this key path to date, and then we just defined a var of saved moods, and now we can start using this saved mood array to just print it out for us for now. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm just going to do like an onAppear and print it onAppear. Actually, I like the idea of having a tap gesture just on this image here. That might be better. So on the block view, and I think that might work. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually run this. All right, so this is our app right now. Let's save Pleasant. Now if I tap the circle, it should print out the, let's try that again. Save. Yep, and now when I tap the green circle, it'll print out the saved moods. So I've saved the save mood twice, and let's add a little bit more of a description here. So just to help us test here, I did an on-tap gesture on the blob view, and inside of this I have looped over the saved moods, and then I'm just going to print out mood.date and then moods raw value, which is going to be the string. I'm going to ignore any errors that might be happening here. Some of these are like false errors. And I'm going to go ahead and select Pleasant and save. And now when I hit the circle here, it should print the date and the raw value of the mood, which is Pleasant. So that is working exactly how we expect it to. Let's try to save a different one. We'll save very pleasant. And now when I hit the circle, it should print out both of those. It printed out pleasant and it printed out very pleasant. I'm going to ignore these path errors here. It might just be something to do with the simulator, and I know that SwiftData is kind of new for now, so I'll just go ahead and ignore it since this is an MVP. Cool, so that has been what I wanted to get through with this video, and I think I've done it a few times, so you guys should be used to this by now. But you want to do a git status to see what we've changed, to make sure that everything that you see listed here is anything that you want pushed to remote. You do a git add all, you do a git commit with an M, add your message. This could be refactoring and mood saving. Hit enter here, and then you do a git push, and then it should be up on GitHub. Thank you guys for following along, and I'll see you next time.